A man cannot miss you if you're always there. Sometimes a guy needs space. Sometimes women need space. Sometimes people need space in relationships. I've heard sometimes women that have posted on some of the stuff that I have where they'll say things like, "Oh, if you're in a relationship, you never need space. You shouldn't ever have space. Everything's shared, everything. However, that can get suffocating to a lot of people and smothering, and it can push people away, and then they end up needing to take space instead of it being something that's gradual and flowing. And so today I'm going to be talking about when a guy needs some space, even if he still loves you and he still wants to be with you and whatnot, he may still need some space. And so today I'm going to be talking about the signs. Hello, my name is Matthew Coast, and welcome to Commitment Connection. So today I'm going to give you 5 warning signs. There's 5 of them, and they're warning signs that he needs some space in your relationship. And if he doesn't get that space, it can turn into something that's a lot worse. And so we're going to be talking about that right now. All right. So sign number 1 is that he's already giving himself some space. And so how is he doing this? He might be making excuses. He might be taking longer to return calls and text messages from you. He might be going cold, or it might feel like he's kind of pushing you away, or like he's kind of distant at the moment. This is a good indication that he needs space right now, but he doesn't want to tell you, either because he thinks that maybe you won't really like it. Maybe he has some reason why he thinks that you might not like it, like you've gotten mad at him before, or maybe in a past relationship, somebody's gotten mad at him before, or because he feels like he shouldn't need some space, but he does. So that's indication number 1, is that he's giving himself space already. All right, so number 2 is he's less mentally present when he's around you. And so he seems really silent or stressed out all the time. He seems like he's emotionally unavailable. He might be in your presence, like he's hanging out around you, but when he's around you, he's not really there, right? He might be spacing out. He might kind of be looking at his phone. He might be doing things that they call them in psychology, they call it soothing, right? It's things that soothe because he's feeling kind of this pressure mentally or emotionally, and he's trying to get some kind of escape, right? Guys play video games sometimes to do that. They check social media, they just space out, they watch TV, they watch sports, they do kinds of things. They're in your presence, but they're not really there with you. And so something could be wrong, or maybe he needs some time to process something in his mind and in his heart. And so he needs some space. Number 3 is he stopped chasing and pursuing you. So you start feeling like you need to step up and plan things in order for anything to happen. And you need to initiate contact all the time. You need to take him out. You need to plan things. You need to do everything. You're the one that's chasing him instead of him chasing you. He might have lost some of that feeling that he has for you, or that fire of desire. I call it the fire of desire, right? He needs that. Sometimes that needs space in order to grow, right? If he has desire, if you think about the idea, because it's a metaphor, right? You think about a fire. Fire needs space. It needs oxygen. It needs. You can't just throw tons of logs on a fire and expect it to go up really big if it's a small fire, right? If you put a bunch of logs on it and it's a small fire, you might smother it. And so you need it to grow. You need to give it space. You need to give it oxygen. You need to give yourself time away from throwing logs on the fire in order for it to grow. And so you don't want to smother it out, and you may want to give him some space if he stopped chasing and pursuing you. Number 4 is he seems like he's really argumentative or defensive all the time. And so he seems like he's a bit on edge or touchy, or just like he's, like if you say something, he kind of like freaks out and it wasn't even a big deal, right? It's like there's kind of this thing out there where they talk about socks, right? If somebody's like angry that there's some socks on the ground or whatever. It's not really about the socks, right? It's about something else that's going on that they're using here. And so there could be a couple of different things going on. One is something called the law of familiarity, which maybe you've heard me talk about this before. The law of familiarity says that the more that you're around something all the time, the more familiar you'll become with it, and the more that you'll take it for granted. And so people need space from something in order to appreciate it. And so you need to give him some space from you in order to appreciate you. And we do this with anything and everything. Think about a song, for instance. Like, let's say you have a favorite song and you listen to it over and over and over again. Maybe you enjoy it, right? You're having a good time listening to the song. But if you listen to it over and over and over, eventually you're not as excited about it anymore. It's not thrilling to you anymore. But if you haven't heard that favorite song of yours and all of a sudden you hear it on the radio, or a friend of yours plays it, or you just hear it, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you're excited about it. You're dancing around. It's great. It's really cool that you're hearing your favorite song. And so you want to be his favorite song, right? You don't want to be there all the time, constantly in his ear. You want him to be excited about you and about you being around. And so he may also have some challenges that are going on in his mind that he needs time to clear. But whatever is going on with him, what you want to do is give him some space and let him come back to you feeling better. All right, so number 5 is that he is unusually and bitterly honest. So this is it's like he's lashing out at you because he's feeling negative in some way, right? He's like bitterly honest, right? Unusually and bitterly honest about things. And so you want him to have positive associations to you. This is one of the most important things that you can possibly do in a relationship. There was a study that was done by the Relationship Research Institute where they found they did this series of studies on everything that you could possibly imagine. And they did it for years, right? And they were checking people's blood and their sweat and their facial expressions and everything. And they take these couples and they test everything on them in these relationships. And then they would go down the road and they would see when these people would break up and what the commonalities were from all the different things that they tested. And they got to a point where they had the ability to have a 90% accuracy in determining whether a couple was going to break up or stay together. And there was one major determining factor in whether a couple would break up or stay together. And it was the amount of positive experiences that those two people had together. And so they had to have 5 times as many positive to negative experiences together in order to stay together. If it went below that, they knew that they would end up breaking up or getting a divorce or whatever their situation was. And so you want to make sure that he's not associating negative experiences with you, negative feelings with you. Because if he's feeling negative and he sees you and he's negative and he sees you and he's negative and he sees you, eventually he's going to start thinking about you in a negative way. He'll see you and start feeling negative, right? It'll switch around. And so you don't want that to happen. And so if he's getting negative a lot, or he's kind of getting angry or any of those kinds of things, you want to give him some space and then let him come back to you when he's feeling more positive, because you want him to associate feeling positive to being around you. And so those were the 5. The first one is so those are the 5, the warning signs that he needs some space in your relationship. Number 1 is that he's giving himself some space already. Number 2 is he's less mentally present when you're around. Number 3 is that he stopped chasing and pursuing you. Number 4 is he seems argumentative or defensive a lot. And number 5, he seems unusually and bitterly honest.